Great, welcome to the FVRCP vaccine training video. Today we're going to show you how to prepare an FVRCP vaccine to give to a cat or a kitten. First we're going to talk about what supplies you want to get ready. So you want to get all your stuff ready before you go get your cat. Some of these packaging materials make a lot of noise and that can be scary to the cat, and while you're getting all the stuff ready, your cat might decide they're done and leave. So you're gonna run out of kitty minutes basically if you're not ready to go when you go grab your cat to get the vaccine. So right here I have a 3 ml syringe with a needle on it. You can see that right there. That's what comes in our vaccine packs when you pick them up. And that you just pull out of the packaging. And then the other thing we're gonna need is your 2 vaccine vials. Now it's really important that these stay in the refrigerator until you're ready to give the vaccine. So I just pulled these out and I'm going to give them within 15 minutes of taking them out of the fridge. They will go bad if they're out of the fridge too long, so you don't want to give a vaccine after that period of time. So we have 2 vials here. One is a diluent, which is just the water basically, and the other is the vaccine powder, and you have to mix them together. So I'm going to use my 3 ml syringe, take off the little cap here, and I'm gonna put it into this little rubber stopper up top, and I'm gonna put it upside down, and I'm gonna draw out all of that water, and that should be about 1 ml total. So if you're not getting that much, keep pulling the needle out farther as you're drawing out, and you should get all of it. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, this one also has a little rubber stopper, and I'm gonna insert the needle tip into the middle of that, and then I'm going to push all the water in there. And I'm not going to shake, but I am going to either roll or do like a little shake here like this. You don't want to get too many bubbles, but you do want that vaccine to mix in nicely, and there shouldn't be any like little clumps. So once you look in there and you see that's all nice and pink and there's no like clumps of vaccine, same thing, I'm going to put it upside down and I'm going to draw it out. And again, it should be about 1 ml total. So if you're not getting all of that, keep pulling the needle slowly more farther out as you're drawing back, and you should get that full amount. Okay, so anytime you're working with needles, make sure not to poke yourself. And also make sure not to touch any of the needle portions to the ground. So you don't want to like set this down while you're working on it. And that's because we want it to be sterile when we're putting it in the cat. The next thing we're going to do is change the needle top. So these get really dull when you're putting them in and out of the vials, so we want a fresh, sharp one. So just twist that off. And we have a fresh one here. I'm going to take that out of the packaging, and I'm going to twist that one on. And you want it nice and tight and twisted so that it doesn't pop off while you're trying to give the vaccine. So I also like to get little bubbles out, so I will kind of push until the air is out of the tip of the syringe, so all you see is pink. So our vaccine is ready now. The next thing we have to do is get our cat ready for the vaccine. So set this aside here. Some tools I have for this are churu, magical churu. You guys familiar with that? That is the stuff that most cats can't resist. So baby food also works really well. Maybe your cat likes dry treats, or maybe they like just their wet food, whatever it is. Maybe save this for meal time when they're hungry, and then you can offer them something to distract them. You could also, if they're not super into food, you could have your second pair of hands over here just kind of touching the cat and massaging its head, and that will be enough of a distraction too. The other thing I have is a nice big towel, and these are great for not only putting the cat on when you're ready to do their vaccine, but also for doing some wraps in case they're being challenging. So big is helpful because you can actually like cover the whole cat with it maybe and just pull an arm out. You can do what we call a scarf wrap, so you still have access to their arm, and I'll show you a couple of those in a little bit here. So I've got my towel ready. I'm just gonna kind of lay that out. I'm gonna put some of my tasty treats on the towel so they can have some. And then I'm gonna go get my kitty. Hi. All right, so we have our lovely patient here. right, do you want some of this? Look. Oh, she's sneezing. That looks good. I have my vaccine, and we are actually going to give it in the right front. We always give the vaccine in the right, and that's because if there is a reaction, then we know that that vaccine was given in that leg in case there's some swelling. We also want to give it as far down the leg as possible, so you can see, you can feel she has an elbow right here. We want it below the elbow. So, and we also want to shoot it down so that in case we do get somewhere slightly above the elbow, we're headed down that way and not in this way. And the reason for that, sometimes there can be reactions, and if, say, there was a vaccine site sarcoma, which is essentially cancer, they could remove the leg and she would still be fine. If it ended up here, they'd potentially have to remove part of her back, which is not nearly as easy and could be more life-threatening. So we try to get it as far down the leg as possible. On kittens, I know that can be a lot harder because they have really tiny legs, so just do the best you can. So she's finished her children. So we're gonna give her some more because she clearly likes that, so that is great. Give her as much as she wants. Now I have my vaccine ready to go. I'm just gonna pull the cap off, and I'm gonna pinch a little bit of skin. So I'm gonna pinch it and pull it out, and we're going subcutaneous, so this is just under the skin. So I'm gonna put the needle in kind of between my fingers. I can feel that it's in the skin between my fingers. I'm gonna pull back with my 2 fingers right here on the plunger to make sure that I'm not getting any air, and I'm not. And then I'm gonna go ahead and depress. When it's all in, I'm gonna pinch with my fingers and pull the needle out. And she was very good for that. Before I do anything else, I wanna recap my needle because it's dangerous. And I wanna check to see if any vaccine spilled on her arm, and it's dry. Now, had there been any little pink spot of vaccine that had gotten out onto her fur, I would want to use my rubbing alcohol to clean that up so that she doesn't lick it. Good girl. Okay, you can have more chirp because you were so good. Boy, this stuff is like magic. So just in case she was maybe not as as good for this, there are some other things we can do. Say she was, getting a little bit antsy, or she didn't, she was kind of whipping her head around, maybe seeming like she wanted to get overstimulated. We could just cover up her whole body and just have her leg out. You could have somebody else assisting you by holding her head away so that she can't whip her head around at you. And you could give it with just her leg out like this. Scarf wrap is another good way to go. So that means that you, actually, I had it right. You put the blanket out like this, put the cat on top, and you actually wrap like a scarf around their neck, and you want it to be pretty tight, so you're actually holding it like pretty tightly, and then you still have access to their legs, so their leg can pull out right like this. So that way you could have somebody holding like this for you, and you would still have access to the leg, and that way if they're really squirmy, they can't turn around and get you. Try not to do any like scruffing, so I know a lot of people like to do actually pull at the scruff, and that's pretty difficult for a lot of cats. They don't really like it, and so we try to do sort of less handling, the less is more kind of approach. Just do the least amount of restraint that you can do to get the vaccine in the cat. So thankfully she was a good girl. And then the last thing you want to do is make sure that we properly dispose of our sharps. So if you're at home, you can just use like a plastic container that has a lid and keep your sharps in there and return them to the shelter when you have enough and you want to properly dispose of them. All right, that is the end of our video. Thank you for participating, and happy vaccinating.